Hey everybody, how you doing out there in podcast land? It is time for your favorite Friday night rock and roll festival. It's not Lollapalooza. It's not Power Trip. It is the Fortress of Rock. Episode 117 taping here on November the 10th, 2023. I, of course, am your host, the Maestro Kevin Crane, and you are who you are. Of course, as always, we start off segment one, News of the World, our tribute to the great Freddie Mercury, the late great Freddie Mercury and Queen. We'll have a little bit of news about them later on in the episode. First, we'll start off with a low point, and then we'll move up from there. Start off with the bad news. I can't stand people who like good news first. When they know there's good news and bad news, give me the good news first. Why would you do that? Take the bad news first, end on a high note. Give yourself a reason to be somewhat excited. I've never understood. I got good news and I got bad news. Take the bad news first. Very short, very sweet, because I am not going to rant about this. I know, shocking. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony was held on November the 3rd. That's it. I'm not going to go into that garbage anymore. I'm not going into the weeds on that anymore. You guys, if you've listened in the past when the nominees were announced, you know how I feel about it. Let's move on to another organization involving music that's stupid. Although I will give them a little bit more credit here this year than I will the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That would be the Grammys. Now, the Grammys have never been smart. The voters, the panel, the board of directors, whoever decides on who gets the awards, they've never been smart. They've always leaned towards popular trends. They got to have somebody win an absolute ton of awards. They can't have a year where they kind of split everything up in a couple people, 3-4 people might get a couple each. No, it's always got to be Taylor Swift, Adele. It's got to be somebody holding 8 or 9 Grammy Awards. And there's your photo op. And of course, they always push rock and roll to the back. You can trace this all the way back to obviously the absolute ridiculous, stupid misstep where Jethro Tull got, what was it, Best Metal Performance or Best Metal Album over Metallica. So what I do now, so I don't get angry and my blood pressure doesn't go up, is I basically just focus on the rock, the small little rock categories that they have in the Grammys, because that's the only group of, you got song, you got album, performance. That's all I care about. I skip over everything else because the rest of it is garbage. Garbage on toast with cheese melted on top. So a little bit of satisfaction this year. 3 nominations for the Foo Fighters, 3 nominations for Metallica, and 2 nominations for my personal favorite, my front runner, as of right now, November the 10th, for Album of the Year, for me, here on the Fortress of Rock. The Grammys have recognized Queens of the Stone Age. Not only for album, but rock song. for emotion sickness. So I can't argue with this. I know I said the Foo Fighters album, but here we are, is very disappointing to me. Only maybe 3 good songs. But the fact they're getting acknowledged, I'm looking at this as an obvious misstep, given what's happened to them over the past few years. Metallica, of course, great new album. But the Foo Fighters, Metallica, they put out new stuff. They're always going to get recognized. It's easy peasy lemon squeezy. Maybe you could say the same about Queens of the Stone Age, but I'm just happy that an album that I truly love, in Times New Roman, has been recognized. So, Grammys win the year over the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but in the end, when you put both together, we all lose. Speaking of losers, not going to go on a rant, just like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Not going to do it. I am being very mature, tempering myself, my emotions this week. But I have to point out, your best friend and mine, sarcasm noted, Roger Waters is at it again. This guy must love to hear the sound of his own hate-filled, nasty, bigoted, anti-Semitic voice. So, of course, now we know we've got tensions not only in the Ukraine with Russia, but, of course, with Israel, Palestine, Hamas, that whole mess. And, of course, Roger Waters, because we know he hates Jewish people. I'm not Jewish, but I'm very scared at the level of hatred ever since this whole battle began over a month ago overseas in the Middle East. Very scared about the open disdain for Jewish people on college campuses in the US, across the world. But of course, we've talked about Roger Waters in the past, the imagery he's using in his concerts. If it smells like a fart, it's a fart. Yes, I put my own little spin on that classic line. Roger Waters is a hateful, anti-Semitic human being. There's evidence piled up. If we were doing Law and Order, dun. And I was the prosecution, I would win in a second, showing all the exhibits, all the evidence that Roger Waters is a nasty, anti-Semitic human being. So now what he has done is he's come out in an interview and said that he, number one, questions the death toll that Israel is putting out there, that the mass media is putting out there, in terms of victims of the attack from Hamas. And then, of course, because he thinks he's so smart, he's so much smarter than the rest of us, he's got to use like Black Ops intelligence vernacular to say, I really, really don't understand. I just wonder if this was a false flag operation. Basically, the same type of thinking as people who thought that the U.S. actually financed 9/11. This is the kind of evil scumbag Roger Waters is. And I'm sorry, that's it. No more. I'll cut it off here, but you want to do the research, you can do the research. Anybody who buys a ticket to one of his shows, in my opinion, propagates hate. Do not put money in his pocket. He is an evil human being. All right, let's move on to concert news. We're starting to get concerts scheduled for 2024, the summer months. So far, hit and miss. We've talked about Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins, Rancid. Now we're getting Alanis Morissette and Joan Jett. 2024 summer tour, June through August. Duh, sounds like summer. Over 30 dates scheduled so far. It must just be me. I did not think Alanis Morissette was that big anymore. Is she making a comeback? You kids tell me. I don't know. Holds no interest to me whatsoever. And we keep talking about this interesting strategy with the Eagles, where it seems like every week, and this could be the reason why they're doing it this way, every week they jump into the headlines saying, oh, we've added a few more dates to our farewell tour. Oh, here we go. We've added a handful more dates to our farewell tour. So, of course, we've got 7 more dates, 7 more shows added to the Eagles farewell tour. And we're going to keep going with this because, by all accounts, they're supposed to go into 2025. Last I heard. Kind of doing the whole Kiss thing. We'll talk about them in a minute. Where they're going to drag this thing out. And that's fine with me. I would love to get another chance to see them. Have to dig deep down into the sofa cushions to find the money, but I'm beginning to think it's worth it. I'll talk more about that later on in segment 3. The Scorpions are the latest rock band to have a Las Vegas residency. No, not at the Sphere. By all accounts, the Sphere is losing crap tons of money. But it's still cool as hell. Looks awesome. Can't wait to see who's going to take over the Sphere after U2. But for now, the Scorpions will be playing their Las Vegas residency April 11th through May the 3rd of 2024 at Planet Hollywood, the Planet Hollywood Casino and Hotel, of course. 40th anniversary of the classic album Love at First Sting. Okay, now we move on to Kiss and the End of the Road tour, which, if you've been keeping track, is actually definitely, maybe possibly, no, definitely coming to an end next month. Of course, the final show is scheduled for December the 2nd at Madison Square Garden in their old stomping grounds, New York City. I don't know how to feel about this. Part of me says this is a good move. Part of me says this is more unbridled greed from Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley. But on multiple carriers, of course, talking about cable, satellite providers, that final show on December the 2nd will be a pay-per-view event. Here's the part I don't like. $40. $40. I guess it's not a terrible price. I guess it's not awful. I did see, though, something I didn't like where if you're not in the U.S., you have to only pay $15. I find that a little odd. Why just not make it $40 for everybody? Why do you have to pick and choose? Oh, the rest of the world can see it for much, much cheaper, but we're going to gouge the U.S. fans, the North American fans, like we always do. Again, more on that coming up later. This is a minor complaint, though. I will admit a minor petty complaint. 40 is not a terrible price. If you are a member of the Kiss Army, you are a true Kiss fan who can't go to New York and see this final show. And of course, keep in mind, and I don't have any problem with this at all. We've talked about the fact that a lot of these bands, Leonard Skinner, The Who, have said this is our farewell tour, and they've reneged on that time and time again, and they're still out on the road, still performing. Keep in mind that this tour, we of course had the pandemic in the middle of the end of the road tour, began in 2019, the beginning of 2019, and it will end in December of 2023. Could be a big trivia question someday. Amaze your friends and neighbors at a party. Kiss's final tour began at the beginning of 2019, ended at the end of 2023. All right, I don't know why this is big news, but great album. Classic album, of course. Many consider it one of the greatest albums of all time. Personally, I'll dispute that, but in the pantheon of rock and roll history, I agree completely. Led Zeppelin 4. They're making a huge, massive, big deal about the fact they think they've identified the man on the cover of Led Zeppelin 4. Now, of course, you're all scurrying to your iPads and your computers to look at the image again. It was obvious that the guy was a roof mender. Bundle of sticks on his back, old, way old school roof mender. But they've got his name now, they think. His name is Lot Long, allegedly. So if there's any younger Led Zeppelin fans out there, you can name your next child Lot Long. Lot Long, and then you give him the last name. As so many goofy people in our society are wont to do. There you go. Brand new, most popular baby name of 2023. Lot Long. Or just Lot. Although I don't think that has positive connotations. Just saying. Geddy Lee, of course, has his autobiography coming out very, very soon here as we get to the end of 2023. He has opened the door back up again after initially saying no to he and Alex Lifeson getting back together and performing as Rush. Paul McCartney, of all people, encouraged it after the Taylor Hawkins tribute concerts. Now, Rush, those guys have always had really good, sensible heads on their shoulders. They've never come off as greedy, trying to make a quick buck. So we'll see where this goes. Geddy Lee has said that Alex Lifeson right now is not in the best of health. He's going to wait to even broach the subject with him until he is 100% healthy. So we'll see what happens here. And who would they bring in as a drummer? That would be a massive, monstrous rock and roll news item. The announcement of a brand new Rush drummer. How about Dave Grohl shuts down the Foo Fighters for a couple years and he takes over? Obviously, they played the Taylor Hawkins tribute. Wouldn't that be kind of the planets, the stars aligning? Dave Grohl loses his drummer in the Foo Fighters. And still a sad, sad moment in rock history. But that ends up reuniting Rush with Dave Grohl taking over for Neil Peart. Wow. Mind blown, right? Mind blown. Just having fun here. Just having some fun. Come on, kids. Lighten up. And speaking of lightening up, how about Bruce Dickinson? Of course, Bruce Dickinson, lead singer for Iron Maiden. He is going to star, and I am not joking here. This is not April Fool's Day. You're not being punked. Bruce Dickinson will star in a horror movie called Bjorn of the Dead, revolving around him portraying the lead singer in an ABBA, yes, I said ABBA, tribute band, stuck in a venue with a bunch of other tribute bands. And then we get, of course, some kind of zombie apocalypse that hits. Sounds kind of fun. Sounds kind of fun. You know, I have not had my fill of rock and roll horror movies. Studio 666 was okay, but give me more. Why not? Give me more. All right. Hope you had fun. Segment 1 here. I did. This was kind of a blast this week. November the 10th, 2023. You know what's coming next. Quick promo break. And then it is time for Breakdown. We have got new music to discuss. Some heavy hitters this week. Dokken, Green Day, and of course, who many consider the greatest rock and roll band of all time, the Beatles, with their final quote-unquote song. We'll be right back in about a minute. Hang tight. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Fortress of Rock podcast with me, the Maestro, Kevin Crane. Of course, that was segment 1, the news of the world, our tribute to Freddie Mercury and Queen, where we look back at the past week in rock and roll and all the news and all the controversies that you deserve to know about. Next up is the heart of the show, the meat and potatoes, Breakdown, where we are going to review all the new songs, all the new albums, all the new concert tours, the shows that I've seen personally. Stay tuned for that. Of course, we're now available on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Hang out, kids. We'll be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. Segment 2 here on the Fortress of Rock. Taping November the 10th, 2023, episode 117. It is time to look at some new music, to break down some new tunes, some new albums. Yes, break down our tribute to the late, great Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, of course. Dokken. Rockin' with Dokken this week. The brand new album from Don Dokken and his backing band, as I look at it now. It's not the classic lineup. It's not even close. The other 3 members of Dokken from the 80s, George Lynch, Jeff Pilson, Wild Mick Brown, all gone. So this is basically Don Dokken solo with a bunch of new guys. Now, guys he's had for a while. I know, I get it. But still, it's not quite the same. They're competent, they're solid, but this is now, of course, as it's always been in his own mind, Don Dokken's baby. So, of course, the title of the brand new album is Heaven Comes Down, alluding to a classic Dokken track, again from the 80s, When Heaven Comes Down. 10 songs, as always, here on the Fortress of Rock. We will go through the entire album, track by track. Now, we reviewed the first 2 songs already in the past. Lead-off track is Fugitive, probably the closest you're going to get on this album to the straight-up classic Dokken sound. Now, we know Don Dokken's been in the press, interviews, talking about the fact that, no, his voice is not what it was. He admits it. And on this album, he limits himself very well. Don Dokken can't be accused of being dumb. Don Dokken is a smart human being. That's why he has survived and in some instances thrived since the early 80s. He knows his limitations, doesn't like talking about them, but he knows his limitations, will write songs around his limitations. So you're not going to get the high notes anywhere on Heaven Comes Down. So Fugitive, again, we reviewed this in the past. Great classic Dokken song. Classic vibe. And then you get track 2, Gypsy, more of the same. Not quite as good as Fugitive, but it's still a nice, solid, dependable 1-2 punch to start off Heaven Comes Down. Then you get something, to me, a little different. A little bit better. Is It Me or You? I really like this song a lot. This is one of my top 2 songs on the album. Yes, it still has the classic Dokken sound to it, but it's a little bit grungy. It's just a different structure, or at least one we haven't heard from Dokken in a while. This is not the straightforward rock song. This is not Breaking the Chains. This is not one of their mid-tempo ballads. We'll get to that in a minute. But it's just a very cool, well-structured, well-written, well-performed song. Is It Me or You? Very good song. So we're 3 in, and we're really doing well here with the new Dokken album, Heaven Comes Down. Track 4, Just Like a Rose, things get dialed back a little bit. Now we're starting to get into the mid-tempo ballad stuff. I will say this, and there's a lot more coming. Trust me, kids. Out of all of the, the mediocre, slower, generic, schmaltzy Don Dokken love songs, I guess, if you want to call them that, this is probably the best of the bunch. Just Like a Rose. I kind of liked it. I didn't think it was bad. It's not necessarily cringeworthy. There's a little bit of sincerity, a little bit of true, deep feelings there that you can latch onto, that you can relate to. Regrets about not treating a former lover as well as you should have. Not terrible. I kind of liked it. So again, 4 songs in now, still doing pretty good. Then songs 5 and 6 is where things start to fall apart. Track 5 is I'll Never Give Up, the worst song on the album. This is the kind of song that the pretentious critics will point to when they begrudgingly listen to an old 80s hair metal band, their new album, and say, see, this song, this is why we hate this stuff. This is why all of us critics hate this stuff. And they're probably right. They ignore all the other good stuff. That's the problem. pointing out the flaws. Critics love to do that. Unless, of course, it's Bruce Springsteen or one of their favorites, Bob Dylan, Neil Young. They won't point out the flaws there. But I'll Never Give Up is just generic, mid-tempo crap. Saving Grace, track 6, is a little bit more of a rocking song. So it's not a mid-tempo ballad, but it's still just, it doesn't achieve the heights, the level that we would expect from a good band like Dokken. Again, if I look at, or I listen to a song and I look at the lyrics and I think it's my cocktail napkin test. If I could go into a bar, grab a beer, get a napkin, and write lyrics better than the song I am questioning, the song I'm reviewing, then it's not a great song. I am in no way, shape, or form touting myself as a great songwriter. That's why I'm saying, if I could do better on a cocktail napkin in a bar, getting my first beer of the night, then the song is no good. So thankfully, we get a reprieve from the bad stuff. As we move on to track 7, we get the best song on Heaven Comes Down. That would be Over the Mountain. A nice, rockin', uplifting song. Just about optimism. Just about looking ahead, looking over the mountain to better days. Nothing spectacular lyrically. It's just a catchy, well-written, well-performed song. And then, unfortunately, we drop back into the schmaltz, the mid-tempo balladry. I Remember, track 8. These lyrics are not good. Again, these lyrics are not good. Again, these lyrics, I could do better on the cocktail napkin test. I remember the good times that we had. I remember when we weren't so sad. Okay. Okay, Don. You think that's profound? You were basically trying to rhyme had and sad. Not great. Not great. Track 9 isn't much better. Lost in You. Again, nothing groundbreaking. Dare I say generic. And then we close out the album with Santa Fe, which, like Is It Me or You, is different for Dokken. Now, where Is It Me or You is almost a grunge rocker, Santa Fe is an acoustic, it's like a spoken word stream of consciousness little ditty from Don talking about his adopted hometown of Santa Fe, New Mexico. Doesn't rhyme. Don't look for rhymes, and that's fine. I appreciate what he's trying to do with Santa Fe. He's trying to do something from the heart. He's trying to do something different. He wants to do something personal, and I get that. Now, Santa Fe is not the greatest song I've ever heard. I don't even know in the end if I could recommend it, but I appreciate it for what it is. Again, a very interesting structure. Not a bad way to close out the album. And dare I say, if it is the last, if it ends up being the last Dokken album, not a terrible final song. Again, it's obviously a personal song, a personal note to end the album on for Don Dokken. So now it comes down to, does the Maestro recommend Heaven Comes Down? Very close. I am really on the border, on the fence on this one. I am going to give it the slimmest, fairest of recommendations because in the end, the good stuff is worth listening to, and there's enough of the good stuff on here to wade through the mediocrity of the rest. So I will, again, slimmest of margins for recommendation here. Check out Heaven Comes Down. Now, if you don't like 80s hair metal, if you don't like Dokken, you will not like this album. This is not going to convert you. This is not going to win you over. All right, let's move on to the singles this week that we're going to review. Now, I told you I held off last week on Green Day so I could do a double shot. Pew, pew, double shot of Green Day because they released the second single already off their upcoming 2024 album, Saviors, to announce, of course, their tour with Smashing Pumpkins and Rancid. So now we have the first two singles, The American Dream is Killing Me and Look Ma, No Brains. Now, I love that title. I love it, love it, love it. Classic Green Day. Here's the problem, and I'm going to review these two songs together, which is never a good sign. If a song is great, it stands out on its own. It's not a package deal. You guys know I have expressed my frustration with Billy Joe Armstrong. He gets too wrapped up in politics. He wastes people's time at these concerts talking about how much he hates Donald Trump, hates Republicans, blah, 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 blah. How about you start focusing back on the music for Green Day? I'm starting to see this band, this trio, slip into a mediocre funk. In my opinion, they have not had a good album since Revolution Radio. Father of All was not a good album. Just wasn't. It was okay at times. And now I'm worried that Saviors is going to fall into the same lazy trap where they think they can play their signature sound. And both of these songs have that classic Green Day signature sound. The problem is nothing else, nothing different. Same dull, tired lyrics, same dull, tired beat, tempo. I hate to say it, I can't recommend either one of these songs to you guys. I can't. And this is not good considering these are the two lead-off tracks to the new album. What does that say about Saviors in 2024? I am very worried about the overall quality of this album. If the first two songs just sound boring, rote, generic for Green Day. Very, very disappointed in both of these songs. Finally, and this, of course, will take a few minutes, we're going to review the quote-unquote final song from the Beatles. Now, of course, we've already had director Peter Jackson, who did that mammoth Disney Plus look at the end of the Beatles and the recording sessions for the final album. Basically, videoing everything short of people going to the bathroom. I mean, it's so much footage. It's too much. And I know Beatles fans out there, how could it be too much? No, Nothing is too much with the Beatles. No stone unturned. We want to see it all. We want to hear it all. I get it. I'm like that with Van Halen. I get it. I do. I do. But, of course, Peter Jackson says Now and Then might not be the last Beatles song. Boy, I'm telling you. Now, I'm not commenting on Now and Then, the final Beatles song. I'm not commenting on the quality of the song when I say, how much more can you scrape from the bottom of the barrel when you're saying there might be more music to come? Two of the four are dead. And the other two, hate to say it, probably don't have a lot longer to go. If there was more out there, I'm sure greed, curiosity would have taken over and we would have heard it by now. So let's look at the song itself, Now and Then. Now, I will admit, I am not the biggest Beatles fan in the world. I respect them. I admire them. I acknowledge they were the first great rock and roll band. And they have some magnificent songs, but I think they have some terrible songs that are given way too much credit. Cuckoo Cachoo. Magical Mystery Tour. Yellow Submarine. Way too many drugs. The nice thing about Now and Then is this is a well done, well put together Beatles song that you could say probably fit either at the very end of their career, akin to a song like The Long and Winding Road, or maybe something from the very beginning before they went nutsy cuckoo with their psychedelic phase. Probably the former. Probably, again, something that would fit at the end of their career with Let It Be, those type of songs, a little more contemplative, a little bit more piano driven. You got strings here, you've got piano here, you got a nice little touch of slide guitar, I believe I hear on this. Of course, it's put together with John Lennon's voice from tapes that I believe Paul McCartney discovered or he was made aware of. Supposedly all four Beatles are heard on this song, performing on this song. I don't know if that slide guitar I hear is George Harrison. I would hope it is. I don't know how they got it, where they got it from, if that was part of these lost tapes, these lost sessions that they were able to use to make Now and Then. But it's a nice, nice song. I know that's not an overwhelming endorsement, but you should take it as a good, solid endorsement. I liked the late era Beatles with all the strife and everything that was going on and how they started to move on from each other and they had their relationships and they'd gotten away to some extent from the drugs and kind of become more grounded at the end, even though there was so much tension going on. Now and Then, I dare I say this is a pretty song. I don't want to say it's a pretty song, but it comes close. It's simple, mournful, regretful. I liked it. I really did. Does it stand up next to some of the Beatles' all-time classics? Probably not. But again, I have my own views on the Beatles catalog, and I'll take it over most of the Sgt. Pepper's Yellow Submarine Magical Mystery Tour garbage. So I definitely recommend Now and Then. Check this out. Is it AI? Is it really John Lennon? Who cares? I mean, we can debate AI forever and ever, but this just sounds right. If it is indeed the last Beatles song, this just sounds right. All right, kids, there you go. Segment 2 is over and done. Breakdown is complete. Fini. But we're only halfway home. Doc Brown firing up the rock and roll DeLorean. He's telling me he's having issues. He's telling me he's having problems. So this could be a fitful, jumpy, messed up, all over the place third segment with I Want to Go Back. Hopefully it'll go smoothly. But if he's giving me forewarning, foreboding, foreshadowing, probably not going to go smoothly. But we'll get through it together. Quick promo break, and I will be right back. All right, now that we've looked at the current state of music in our breakdown segment, it is time to climb into the DeLorean and travel back in time to look back at moments in rock and roll history, birthdays, deaths, anniversaries of song and album releases. It is time for I Want to Go Back, our tribute to Eddie Money. Stay tuned. And as always, we're on Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Cast, and Radio Public, anywhere where you listen to your favorite podcasts. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Fortress of Rock here on November the 10th, 2023, episode 117. Doc Brown and I, as we do at this time every week, getting ready to take a quick jaunt into the rock and roll time stream. It will be a little quick this week. Not a lot happening in history on November the 10th, but still a couple interesting things. But of course, first and foremost, you guys know this time every week on the podcast, I have to take care of business. So, of course, first and foremost, you found us. Good for you. Great for me. Very happy, as always, to have you on board. But you do have options. You have choices. Not just A or B. A, B, C, D, E, F. You got a bunch of choices as to where you can listen to the Fortress of Rock each and every Friday night. And, of course, listen to back episodes, the back catalog. We are on Spotify, Google, Radio Public, Pocket Casts, Apple, iHeartRadio, Overcast, Castbox, Amazon Music, and Audible. And of course, do not forget to check out the Facebook page where you will find links to every episode. And of course, we have some fun things going on Friday nights, right around the time the podcast episode drops. The brand new episode drops right around that same time. If you go to the Facebook page, you will be able to participate in the Weekend Rock Project. Not quite sure what we're doing yet this week. I'm cutting it close. Very, very close because I'm recording this, getting ready to post it in a couple hours. And I've got to get the Weekend Rock Project out there as well. But check it out. It's always fun. We give you a word, a theme, an idea, and you give us back your favorite rock songs that fit the bill, that fit the mold, that qualify based on what we've given you. And then every Sunday, of course, is New Music Sunday. Again, not quite sure what new song video we're going to give you this coming Sunday, but there is plenty to choose from with all these pre-Christmas releases coming out now. So don't forget, again, to check out the Facebook page. Now, of course, as much as I would like to brag and boast that all of these ideas from beginning to end, segments 1, 2, 3, and 4, it's all me. Now, segments 2 and 4 are all me. But segment 1, News of the World, segment 3, here, I want to go back. Our look back at anniversaries of classic album releases and moments in rock history and birthdays, our tribute, of course, to the late, great Eddie Money. A lot of these ideas, the kernels, the nuggets of wisdom, start from other places. 3 main sources: ultimateclassicrock.com, thisdayinmusic.com, and of course, the mighty Van Halen News Desk. And I believe I forgot to acknowledge those 3 sources last week. I do apologize. But you guys should know by now, we're over 100 episodes in. You get it. If I forget once in a while, you know. All right, let's start off with just a couple anniversaries here on November the 10th. Of course, this band is out on their farewell tour. We talked about them earlier, of course, sparingly, judiciously adding dates. Interesting strategy for the Eagles. So on this day, November the 10th, 1979, the 5th and final U.S. #1 single for the Eagles hit the top of the charts. That would be Heartache Tonight. And again, I have regrets. You try to be fiscally responsible. I know sometimes you got to spend the money, sometimes you got to splurge, or you're going to miss out. More often than not, I've been lucky enough to be able to go see the bands, the acts, the performers I've wanted to, but I keep missing the Eagles because I don't want to spend the money. Well, let me tell you a little story. We're getting ready for the 2024 concert season, of course. We talked about Alanis Morissette, Joan Jett in the first segment. There are some other tours that have been announced, of course, the Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins, Rancid tour. Well, there was also an announcement for Hootie and the Blowfish and Collective Soul, who I happen to love. Both bands, love both bands. Now, I've seen both bands before, multiple times, but when I saw that pop up this week, I was like, hey, that could be fun. Get a pre-sale code. Of course, my favorite venue, Deer Creek, Ruoff Music Center, outside of Indianapolis, Indiana. Just looking for regular seats. We did the lawn pass thing, kind of over it, kind of done with it. And of course, I will have a story, a developing story about your experience on the lawn in 2024 at any and all Live Nation venues. That'll be coming next week. I'm looking for confirmation on this, so I don't want to jump the gun yet. But going back to Hootie and the Blowfish, tying this into the Eagles, and me not wanting to spend $180 to go see the Eagles. So looking for regular seats, normal seats for Hootie and the Blowfish and Collective Soul, not dead center up close. My friends and I, we always look off center, not all the way to the side. That's just ridiculous. That's not worth it. But just off center at the back of the pavilion, the covered area. Those of you who live outside of Chicago, Tinley Park, you would know the setup, how it works, basically how a lot of the outdoor concert venues are set up. And I'm thinking, probably about 75, 80 bucks for tickets. With fees and taxes, $120 for Hootie and the Blowfish and Collective Soul to sit in the last row of the pavilion and not dead center. Dead center, last row was closer to $130, $140 a ticket. Is this where we're going now? Is this what Live Nation and Ticketmaster, they don't get it. They get investigated, they get chastised by the government, raked over the coals by their fans, and they go the other way. They go, I'm going to make it even harder for you. We're going to make it even harder for you to enjoy a concert. We're going to charge you more. And then again, like I said, I've got a breaking story for next week involving Live Nation venues that will make it even more miserable for you to go see a concert at a decent, affordable price. Now, again, my regrets for the Eagles are kicking in because now $180 for decent seats at an indoor basketball arena doesn't sound so bad. If Hootie and the Blowfish are charging $120, maybe $180 for the Eagles' final tour isn't so bad. Digression, tangent aside, over. All right, on this day, November the 10th, 1975, this is an act, this is a performer I don't get. I don't understand the adulation. I don't understand the appeal. This is a critic's darling, which I could care less about, but November the 10th, 1975, Patti Smith released her debut album, Horses. And of course, the only Patti Smith song that I know is a Bruce Springsteen song, her cover of Because the Night. That's it. That's all I know from her. That's all I want to know from her. It's that the whole critics, we're cooler than you attitude. We know more than you. That's why Radiohead is so popular. That's why Patti Smith gets accolades. Is because the critics have to have their own little secret bands that they love and push them on us. So there you go, Patti Smith fans. Milestone day for you. Then finally, doing, in my opinion, a complete 180 to an actual legend and an actual legendary album. Our final anniversary this week, November the 10th, 1973. Starting an 8-week run at number one on the U.S. album charts, Elton John's Goodbye Yellow Brick Road. But wait, Doc Brown looking over at me, shaking his head, his wild white mane of hair, going back and forth, hypnotically to and fro, telling me we've missed a couple significant anniversaries that we have got to go back and cover for you before we move on to birthdays. November the 10th, 1983. Billy Idol's breakthrough album, Rebel Yell, was released. Love Billy Idol. Love him, love him, love him. I could make an argument, as I can for dozens and dozens of rock and roll acts throughout the 70s and the 80s, that Billy Idol should warrant consideration for, of course, that idiotic Rock and Roll Hall of Fame that we discussed in segment 1. And then November the 10th, 1975, many would argue that this was the moment that launched MTV. This was the moment that created the video clip for songs. No, it's not the Buggles. Video killed the radio star. Of course, that was the first video that was aired on MTV when it launched. But we're talking about the classic clip for Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody. On this day in 1975, that video clip, that fantastic yet special effects bare, low budget, next to nothing video clip, you could argue technically was the first great music video. Bohemian Rhapsody, of course, featured the four members of Queen with a black background, singing the song, lip syncing the song. Similar kind of shifted position, similar to, of course, the classic Beatles pose that so many bands have copied. I know Van Halen copied it on OU 812. So again, on this day in 1975, the birth, in my humble opinion, of the music video with Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody. Now we'll move on to birthdays here on the Fortress of Rock. All right, let's move on to birthdays here on November the 10th. I think you're going to sense a recurring theme. Bass players. Just keep that in mind as we go through these birthdays. Let's start off with November the 10th, 1979. I'm probably going to butcher a couple of these names, so please forgive me. First off, we start with Chris Jeannot, bass player for the band Silverchair. Of course, their most notable album, Frog Stomp, their most notable song, You Wait Till Tomorrow. I know. Golden pipes that I have. The song Tomorrow. I do have Frog Stomp somewhere among my thousands and thousands of CDs. Somewhere I have got Frog Stomp. But Silverchair, another one of those bands, was supposed to be the next big thing. They were very young when they started out and got some success. Never really achieved global domination, global fame, like everybody, again, the critics thought they would. But still had some great music. So happy birthday to Chris Jeannot. Again, I apologize. I am probably butchering that name. Bass player for Silverchair. November the 10th, 1975. Jim Adkins. Vocalist, guitarist for Jimmy Eat World. Of course, for me, one great song, The Middle. Awesome, awesome song. Absolutely awesome song. I will not sing any part of this. I've already subjected you, tortured you enough with that. It just takes some time, little girl in the middle. There, I did it. God bless it. I promised I wouldn't, and I did it anyway. Oops, I did it again. Jim Adkins, happy birthday. Born on this day in 1975. Now we drop all the way back to November the 10th of 1958. Another bass player of significance, Frank Maudsley. Classic lineup for A Flock of Seagulls. And of course, they had a couple really big hits, a couple really great songs. Of course, their most notable song is I Ran. And they're out on tour right now, but I do not believe Frank Maudsley is in the current lineup. Space Age Love Song, another hit from A Flock of Seagulls. November the 10th, 1954. Mario Cipollina, bass player. See, I told you this was a theme. Bass player for Huey Lewis and The News. And of course, we briefly, regretfully, had to discuss the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in the first segment. Where's the love for Huey Lewis and The News? I think they should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Ahead of a lot now, after the last 5-10 years of pathetic inductees. Huey Lewis and The News should be in the Rock Hall of Fame ahead of Rage Against the Machine. I'm sorry. They should. And dozens and dozens of others who are in that travesty, that mistake by the lake in Cleveland. November the 10th, 1948. Greg Lake. Of course, Carl Palmer is out on the road right now doing kind of a virtual tour with his fallen bandmates from Emerson, Lake and Palmer, of course, including Greg Lake. And of course, Greg Lake also played in King Crimson. And then finally, November the 10th, 1947, we'll wrap things up with Glenn Buxton, guitarist for Alice Cooper's band. So there you go, kids. Doc Brown is pulling the rock and roll DeLorean back into the garage. We're pulling up the drawbridge over the moat, getting ready to close things up for the night. But you know we're not done yet. One more segment to come where we look ahead. We've looked in the past. We've looked back. Now we look forward. Our latest update on what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the year. Wrap It Up is coming up after a quick promo break. I'm the Maestro, Kevin Crane, and the Fortress of Rock will be right back. Well, we hope you enjoyed our trip back in time, looking back at the anniversaries, the classic moments in rock and roll history. But of course, the DeLorean works both ways. So now we have to move forward. The last segment here, as always, on the Fortress of Rock with me, the Maestro Kevin Crane. Spotify, Anchor, Apple, Stitcher, Castbox, Google, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. It's all about the future. What's coming out here in the next month or two? What songs? What albums? What concert tours? That's why we call it Wrap It Up. Thanks to the fabulous Thunderbirds. Thanks to you for hanging out. Here comes our final segment. All right. We've locked down the garage. Time to settle in. Maybe you have a cigar. Maybe you have a nice snifter of brandy, putting on your smoking jacket. Time to settle down, settle in for the night. Or maybe you're going the other way and you're going out to a concert and you are going to rock out. Good for you. But this is the end of the road for episode 117. Taping here on November the 10th, 2023. This, of course, is Wrap It Up. The fourth and final segment, our tribute to the fabulous Thunderbirds, where we talk about what we're going to review, discuss in terms of new music for the rest of 2023. Now, of course, we've got about 6-7 weeks before we start the list. The best of 2023, the best concerts, the best albums, the best songs. So you've got that to look forward to. But looking at our slate for the next month or so, lots of albums still to review. I know I've been saying this for the last month or so. We have plenty of albums. We're going to be able to slide right through into 2024 and still have stuff to review. For next week, episode 118 on November the 17th, of course, we will finally get to the brand new and last album from Jimmy Buffett, Equal Strain on All Parts. Now, I'll tell you this right now, I've listened to it a lot already, and I think we're looking at a very positive review next week. In 2 weeks, episode 119, November the 24th, that's going to be a big one because we finally get our last concert review for 2023. Chris Isaak live in Elkhart, Indiana. Supposedly a Christmas show, but hopefully he'll play a lot of his old good stuff. Probably would be a riot if he didn't play Wicked Game. On top of that, we will have a review of the new solo album from Jesse James Dupree. Just got it today. Breathing Fire, lead singer of Jackal, brought Roman Glick, bass player from Jackal, along with him on this. Drummer, his son. Very cool. Very, very cool. Mostly new music. I can see as I looked at the track list, just maybe one or two revisited versions of Jackal songs or cover songs. That's coming up in 2 weeks. In 3 weeks, I'm still debating. This would be episode 120 on December the 1st. Either the new Dirty Honey album or the new Struts album. Maybe even that Night Ranger album with the Contemporary Youth Orchestra could slide in there. Like I said, lots of stuff. We're going to review all of these albums at some point. I'm definitely going to, in 4 weeks, finally, after this full year of him teasing it and releasing these songs on new moons, in 4 weeks, episode 121, dropping on December the 8th, I will review, finally, Peter Gabriel's I.O. And I'm looking forward to it. I've liked a lot, as I've told you guys, a lot of the music I've heard from that. Sounds a little bit mellow. Again, don't know if that's the right word for it. Atmospheric. But looking forward to that. Of course, we still are planning on having somewhat of a holiday episode around Christmas with Mark Tremonti's Christmas album and a secret special song from the Rock and Roll Archives about 15 years ago. It'll be fun, I promise you. It will be fun. The holiday episode will be fun. My gift to you. Now, the interesting thing is, with all these albums sitting out there, not a lot of new songs. So right now, all I've got set up for next week in terms of new songs is Mick Mars. We've talked about this. His first solo single ever, Loyal to the Lie. Listened to it for the first time today. Initial response, not bad. Not bad. Again, not a big fan of cover songs, not a big fan of reviewing cover songs, but of course we did it recently with the Black Moods and Roadhouse Blues. I might bend the rules again for Bush. They have just released their cover of the, going back to the Beatles, from segment 2. Bush has a cover of Come Together. Who hasn't covered Come Together? But again, I've listened to it. It's not bad. Initial impression, not bad. And then I just got word here within the last couple hours, David Lee Roth has yet another not new album. I wish he would release this stuff as an album, the stuff he did 15 years ago with John 5, who of course is now in Motley Crue. Another song released from those sessions, High Fashion. So a lot here recently of new David Lee Roth material. So those 3 songs, most likely in some order, in some way, shape, or form, are going to be in breakdown next week, along with Jimmy Buffett. So that'll do it for your latest, greatest episode of The Fortress of Rock. Thank you, as always, very, very much for hanging out with me on a Friday night. Looking forward to next week, the week after, each and every Friday night, hanging out with you guys. This train keeps rolling. It does not stop. Have a great, fantastic weekend. Love the one you're with. I am the Maestro, Kevin Crane. We will check you out in 7 days. See ya.